Right, let's now head back to Crystal Palace's training ground where James Savundra was planning to speak to Roy Hodgson later this hour. That's all changed now, of course. James, good afternoon again. Hodgson won't be speaking to the media now. What's happened? Do we know how he is?
Good afternoon, David. Well, we're waiting to see what condition Roy Hodgson is in. We arrived here earlier on this morning, waiting to be taken into Crystal Palace training ground around 12:30 this afternoon. We waited for around 20 minutes before we received that statement from Crystal Palace, which said that unfortunately the press conference will no longer take place at 1:30 this afternoon after Roy Hodgson was taken ill during this morning's training session. And we know Roy Hodgson arrived at the training ground around 9:30 a.m. this morning to take training as scheduled, and this comes amid multiple reports that Roy Hodgson could be set to lose his position as Crystal Palace manager. He spoke on Monday night following the late defeat against Chelsea and insisted that he would steer Crystal Palace away from relegation trouble with 14 matches left to play, but we still wait to see whether he'll be given the opportunity to do that. Of course, there probably will be some scepticism about the situation, considering we were supposed to speak to Roy Hodgson at 1:30 p.m. and the press conference was cancelled with just over half an hour's notice. But that's all the information we have at this moment in time. Roy Hodgson remains the Crystal Palace manager, but his press conference scheduled for 1:30 p.m. this afternoon has been postponed.
Yeah, James, how did we get to this point?
Well, it's been a really tough time for Crystal Palace and for Roy Hodgson this season. He was given that 12-month contract in the summer, and that followed a really impressive end to last season. 5 wins from their last 10 matches, 18 points in total, means he helped steer Crystal Palace away from relegation trouble after replacing Patrick Vieira in March, picking up 18 points and led them to 11th place finish. And in the summer, he was given a 12-month deal, and the target was there to finish in the top half of the Premier League table. And they started relatively well at the start of the season, but it has fallen away quite dramatically since then. In the last 17 matches in the Premier League, Crystal Palace have picked up just 13 points and just 3 wins, and 3 wins in 19 in all competitions. Only Burnley and Sheffield United have picked up less points than Crystal Palace in that time. It's a run of form, which means they've only beaten Sheffield United and Brentford since the start of November. So those ambitions of finishing in the top 10 feel a long way away at the moment. And when we speak to Roy Hodgson on a weekly basis, it's clear there is a real frustration with the lack of players he's had to call upon due to injury. At the moment, he's missing Michael Olise and Eberechi Eze, and he's been without them for large periods of the season, which really has hampered Crystal Palace from an attacking point of view. Mark Gahey, the influential defender, he's missing at the moment too. And Chet Doucouré, their main midfielder, he's been out with an ACL injury and won't play again this season, we don't think. And it has led to reports that Roy Hodgson was set to be sacked by Crystal Palace. They take on Everton in the Monday Night Football. Palace now just 5 points above the relegation zone, and 3 of the next 4 matches, including Everton, all against sides below them in the Premier League table, sides battling with Crystal Palace to remain in the Premier League. And there are also reports that Crystal Palace have held talks around potentially bringing in Oliver Glasner. Now, he's out of contract at the moment. He left Eintracht Frankfurt at the end of last season and has a huge amount of success in the Bundesliga. It must be said, he led Eintracht Frankfurt their first title in more than 40 years. They won the Europa League in 2022, beating Rangers on penalties in the final. They knocked out West Ham in the semi-final, Barcelona in the knockout stage as well. And he was so impressive in his time at Wolfsburg. Before that, they finished 4th and he qualified for the Champions League with them, and he impressed as well in the Austrian League with Lask. So if he is given the opportunity to lead Crystal Palace forward, he'll need to hit the ground running, because Crystal Palace have a really difficult run coming up now, and it starts in the Monday Night Football against Everton at Goodison Park. We just wait to see whether Roy Hodgson will be in the dugout or not.
James, good stuff. Thank you.